Hi, everybody. Welcome to the June 16th, 2025 meeting of the Town of Richmond Select Board. As always, we begin with a welcome and public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to make a comment on anything not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move into additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda.
Don't forget
And-
the one we have, yeah.
And there is one. Pardon me while I bring that up.
I'm right inside and,
Hello.
got the truck case, just took that, but now I don't have my phone, so. That's fine. I have my phone.
I have an opposition.
I can get.
You can.
Yep.
Oh, so we do have a minor change to the agenda. On the agenda relating to the Tier 1B item, which is item D. The original agenda item reads consideration of opting in for the Tier 1B designation, which would provide an exemption from Act 250 for housing projects in the town designated growth area that are 50 units or less and 10 acres or less till 2027. The correct wording is after July 1, 2027 and not until. So the blanket exemption is actually in place till July 1, 2027. And so essentially on your agenda, if you would replace
My bad.
with after. So that's item D. So 50 units or less and 10 acres or less after 2027.
Quick recovery, Duncan.
Yep.
I don't know why they do that. It's like you start on mute and then the minute they let you in, they, it's like, I gotta do the mute on.
Okay. So our first item on the agenda, and can you
Yes.
let me be able to share?
Yep. Hold on. You should be able to now.
Our first item on the agenda is the retirement party for our fire chief, Dennis Gile. He has been with us for a very, very long time and has been acting as our chief for the last several years. He will be retiring as of July 1, and we are all in his debt for his service to the community and to the fire department. There will be a retirement party, which all members of the public, town employees, and fire department members are welcome to attend. It will be taking place in 2 days on the 18th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Stone Corral. That's Wednesday, June 18th, 4 to 6. Appetizers will be provided, but you'll have to buy your own drinks or full meals. And so I hope everybody listening or here in the room will make an attempt to show up, and
Cake provided too.
cake provided too. Okay, any questions about the retirement party?
Jay, did you do public comment?
I did. You can-
I zoned out.
No, you hadn't come in yet.
Oh, okay.
You were a couple minutes late.
Gotcha. There's 3 of them. All right, cool.
Okay. So, hope to see you all there in a couple of days. Our next item on the agenda is consideration of approving a request from Project Altogether Now VT to utilize $2,000 in community well-being funds. I will bring up a few details about that. Pardon me just one moment. Okay, so Project Altogether Now VT, which is a Vermont 501c3 organization, requests that the Richmond Select Board approve spending $2,000 from the Community Wellbeing Fund to support youth interns and community programs to support youth mental well-being and resilience in alignment with the goals of the Richmond Town Plan. Earlier in this fiscal year, the Select Board approved $3,000 for Project Altogether Now VT from this budget line. The budget line has a total of $5,000, so that means there are $2,000 remaining. And I will now share the document I'm sharing is a little bit of information about Project Altogether Now. So it's a youth-driven, and it is heavily youth-driven prevention coalition in the eastern part of the county, based out of Richmond, and its focus is on equitable mental health and well-being. They have been working with the Richmond Library on cross promotion of youth events and using the Richmond Library's meeting space. They have been working with Mount Mansfield Union YRBS data, which I confess I did not look up before the meeting. If anybody wants to look that up and tell me what that is.
Youth Risk Behavior Survey.
There we go. They've been working with MMU to analyze Mount Mansfield Union Youth Risk Behavior Survey data. And they're going to be hosting a discussion with all students to look further into these results and determine how we can use them to be most effective in preventing mental illness and substance misuse. They have interns completing the Be There certificate to increase their knowledge and recognizing and helping people who are struggling with mental health. And well, it's actually fairly long. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it is in the packet. And in my opinion, Project Altogether Now does some very good work. So to return back to the request is for us to allocate the remaining $2,000 to the Community Wellbeing Fund to support their programs. So I turn it over to the board for comments, questions, discussion.
I don't have any questions or, I mean, their presentation, great when they came in during your meeting, and their mission seems worthy and fruitful, so.
Okay. Are we ready for a motion?
Move to use $2,000 from the community wellbeing budget to support the work of Project Altogether Now.
Jay, this is David. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander, to approve the use of $2,000 from the community wellbeing budget to support the work of Project Altogether Now. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Bard, aye.
And Jay, aye. Okay, thank you all. Our next item on the agenda is consideration of approving a request from the Richmond Land Trust to use funds from the Conservation Reserve Fund to convert the 10-vehicle grass parking lot at Beeken Preserve to a 20-vehicle gravel lot. And we have Wright Preston here from the Richmond Land Trust. And Wright, the floor is yours to tell us more about this.
Great, thank you. A week ago, I went before the Richmond Conservation Commission and received approval or their recommendation for Richmond Land Trust to approach the Select Board with this opportunity. As you may recall, we had an old parking lot east of the current grass lot that the access was always poor and it was susceptible to flooding. And we closed that out last year and received town zoning approval to install a grass lot, which we mow, and it is open. The flooding of last July and then the very wet fall and spring have made the 10-vehicle grass extremely ruddy and bumpy. So we feel that in our effort, the Richmond Land Trust effort to provide additional parking for lots of different recreational opportunities that seem to be based on Conklin Road, we're looking to convert it to a 20-car parking lot. The Beeken Preserve is owned by the Richmond Land Trust. There's a conservation easement held by Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. The VHCB has approved the 20-car lot. Zoning has approved it. It is an engineer designed 20-car parking lot with one accessible vehicle location. It is outside of the floodway. It's right at the edge of it. We went out to bid with 3 local contractors. We received 3 bids. The low bid was Richard Coles LLC. So that is a portion of the $30,170. The other $2,000 is we are looking to close out. We have to go before the DRB to do this, I've learned. To close out the old parking lot and install plant 50 trees. So we have an estimate from Intervale Foundation to provide the 50 trees. And then we're asking Richard Coles to do additional entranceway, site improvement so that we've got good line of sight, people coming in and out. It's a spot that is used seasonally. We didn't plow it last winter. Sometimes the other lot was plowed. It's close to the river. It's close to where folks can access the river with canoes. A little bit to the east. It's used for parking for the river shore, for the river, for mountain biking, for walking the trails, for road biking. And it will see somewhat increased use when it's converted to a 20-car gravel lot. Oftentimes we come in with some additional funding sources. This particular case, we don't have additional funding sources. Other than we've paid for the engineering out of pocket, that's $1,000. And we as volunteers will be planting the 50 trees when we receive them and go through zoning later on in the summer.
Right, as you've been reading, I've been basically trying to zoom the memo as
Right.
what you're talking, and here is the map in case you wanted to comment on it.
Yep. So you can see the entranceway on the bottom. Currently, you drive in and you go straight in and take a right for 10 spaces. But with this 20-car lot, you'll be able to drive in and take a right, drive to the east, or drive in and take a left, drive to the west, and have the 20 spaces that will be gravelled in. Because this is in the, help me, please, the floodplain, we have to be neutral as to removal of fill and addition of fill. So the engineering spec is that the contractor will remove a foot of fill and take it off-site out of the floodplain to a higher elevation, and will bring in road spec gravel, which he indicates probably comes from Hinesburg Sand and Gravel. They spec it to road standard, so this is road standard gravel.
Okay, and as Wright mentioned, the floodway versus the floodplain, the red line that you see there going from top center to lower right, that's the floodway boundary. And so this is, as you can see, entirely outside the floodway.
Right.
But in the floodplain.
In the
But,
floodplain.
yeah, and my guess is that the old parking lot to the east, in all likelihood, was in the floodway. So there is a big pile of dirt there. The contractor is going to be leveling out that dirt that's piled down in the parking lot. We've already closed that out with a gravel berm.
I think my memory is that Pete was using it as a storage area, so gravel piles would show up, gravel piles would disappear, but it was a net neutral fill. I might be wrong.
We're not aware of that.
Okay.
I think that's a little bit further.
That's west.
Yeah, that's west of where the
Okay.
parking
So
spot
that's
is.
near
Yes, he's got it, right.
Overrockers.
And then we've got the
I'm
one,
confused. You're right. You're right.
right, and then there's the one by, yeah, the other end too.
Yep. We will be seeking approval from zoning to install some signage related to invasive plant species and wise use of multi-use trails. We want to be able to accommodate walkers and mountain bikers, and we're thinking about a kiosk, and that's a structure. But that's the next project.
And so the schedule for this, assuming funding commitment, is during the summer of 2025, which is going to start in just a couple of days. Are we looking at July and August, or?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
the billing, I'm told a couple of weeks ago, Richard indicated that he could start immediately. So I think he has time to do it in July. We hope he does. The project will take about 2 weeks. And the billing would be July or August.
So, the motion before us, and certainly we're going to discuss this, is to authorize $30,170 from the Conservation Reserve Fund to implement this. Questions from members of the board?
So this, I was just looking at the map, and just to be clear, this is a grass lot, not, it's so further down the road is that dirt lot, right, that you can pull into and park it, and this is a that grass lot that's like just before it.
The
Okay.
grass lot's very visible from the road. The
Yep.
dirt lot, you drove, literally, if you were coming from the village, you would drive in and take a very hard left. And
Yep.
get down in the shaded area.
Yep.
We feel that this is safer in many regards. Access is safer, and also the lot is very visible night and day.
Okay. Bard, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just think it sounds like a good plan and a better parking area for all the reasons described. Could you, Ray, maybe describe the commitment of the land trust to keep this available for parking or maintaining the parking such that it is available for parking into the future?
Sure, thank you. We currently have two gravel parking lots in town. There is a 12-ish car parking lot at Willis Hill. I drive by it frequently. There are people that use it, probably not for Willis Hill, but it is used. We view it as an emergency access for the middle and elementary school. Buses could pull in there. There's a mode path pretty much to there, so it's an important emergency access. When we completed the Gillett Pond Dam last fall, that included a 10 or 12 car gravel parking lot. That was installed and that's being used every day.
Oh, yeah.
And this is similar, it's a little larger. The two gravel lots that I mentioned, we hire a contractor to plow them in the winter. Depending on the demand, we could plow this. It's not town property, so it's on us to plow it. I don't recall if Over Rockers is plowed in the winter.
I don't think it is.
Okay, so that's something
I
we
think
can.
it's chained. It might be wrong.
But it's
Is it?
at the end of the route, right?
Oh.
If they have time.
Okay, so we would look. Now that it will be if you approve this, it will be a gravel lot. It's something we could plow. Depending on the demand. The river demand is low and biking demand is low. At Gillett Pond, there are winter activities that take place, so plowing is important. Willis Hill sliding in theory is an important component there, so we plowed for that. So it would be probably on the run of plowing if that seems to be appropriate, if it's necessary.
Okay, Keith?
Good evening, everybody. I just want for rights edification, the wayfarers, the way signage, that's de minimis. You don't need a permit for that. And as far as the kiosk, I'd need to see what that looks like. That could also be de minimis also, but we'll so-called burn that bridge when we come to it. That's all.
Great.
Okay, thank you so much, Ray. Any other questions or comments?
I mean, I've used the old lot a bunch of times. It's a great location. It's a terrible lot.
Right.
Yeah, this seems like a great upgrade and sure.
Mowed it the other day and it just about killed me. It was extremely bumpy.
Yeah, that I was thinking of the old.
Oh, the old one.
Old
Yeah,
lot,
sure.
yeah, it's a nightmare.
It is. It's not safe. No.
And
Yes,
you,
it was a
during
great
mud
upgrade.
season, you can sink up to your axles in that old one.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So we're obviously we're trying to improve things.
Yeah, it's great.
Yep.
Hey, are we ready for a motion?
I move to approve Richmond Land Trust's request to use $30,170 from the Conservation Reserve Fund to convert the 10-vehicle grass parking lot at Beeken Preserve to a 20-vehicle gravel lot.
Okay, this is David. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Caitlin Filkins, seconded by David Sander, to approve Richmond Land Trust's request to use $30,170 from the Conservation Reserve Fund to convert the 10-vehicle grass parking lot at Beeken Preserve to a 20-vehicle gravel lot. Okay, any further questions or comments? Seeing none, please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam,
Bard, aye.
And Jay, aye. Okay, all right,
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
And thank you again for the work on Gillette Pond. That bridge, that dam just looks wonderful.
It's great. We couldn't be happier. It's and the fundraising was awesome locally, both in Richmond and Huntington. It was a wonderful two-town project.
Yeah.
And yeah, we decided that we will have a celebration this winter
Nice.
because we tend to attract a lot more people for cross-country skiing and skating, so some Saturday or Sunday, when the ice is thick, we will have a celebration.
Terrific.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So we're gonna pause for a moment to allow our town manager, Josh Tharnison, to fight in. And you get the heck out of here.
I know.
Okay, appreciate it.
You try to give him a night off and he can't even be back, you know, it's like.
Oh, well.
Have a graduation or celebration.
Yeah.
Great celebration. It was good. It's cool.
Yeah, I think everything's also, oh yeah.
It's good, yeah.
Grab the maps.
Yes.
Yep, thank you.
And then
Charlie,
what's the
are you
water
here to
sewer stuff?
comment on this?
That's, he's got it. right
Sure,
there.
what
He's still
he's
gotta sign,
Oh,
he's
still gotta
supposed to sign
sign.
a few things, and that's what I put down there.
Okay.
X on that, so.
On the J side, thanks
Yeah,
for
yeah.
water sewer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yes, I do need to.
yeah, maybe take a second, I guess.
I'm very chaotic.
Was it chaotic ending with water sewer? So it wasn't too bad.
Why did somebody cross them?
Nice job with the celebration, and it's kind of cool seeing all those kids and knowing a lot of them for a long time, seeing them off the high school. I'm crazy.
Well, you know it, you'll be at the next one.
That'll go even faster. That'll be even more like, oh my God.
It was exponentially faster.
Everything just goes faster. Yeah.
Said it ominous.
One of these are printed with the wrong signature line and had this.
Did you guys just cross it out? And then it, thanks. We'll catch that. Pull that out.
Get you, don't say it.
No, I think I'm like,
Are you?
yeah.
Need to sign with this one before we do that.
Where are we up to next? We're at
up
tier
at
one
tier
D.
D.
Yeah, I think you guys can start that. I'll have some time to get logged in.
Okay,
Fine.
so at the last meeting of the select board, we heard from a number of people, including our town planning commission chair, Virginia Clark, and our town planning and zoning administrator, Keith Oborn, about the topic of opting in for tier 1B designation, which would provide an exemption from Act 250 for housing projects that are in the town designated growth area, i.e. the village center, where those units are 50 units or less and 10 acres or less until 2027. And so we're continuing that discussion. In the packet are the memos from the Planning Commission and Housing Committee that were provided at the last meeting. The memo and a draft resolution from CCRPC and our CCRPC, what is your title? Executive Director, okay. Executive Director, Charlie Baker is here. We have an email from Planning Commission Chair Virginia Clark, and we have a zoning map which shows the village center outlined in purple. As I recall, the Housing Committee is for it, and the Planning Commission is against it. And it really comes down to, do we have the resources to take on the responsibilities that would be ours rather than the state's if we did implement this? So Keith, you're here, you've got your camera on. Let's hear from you first.
Well, just real quick on the tier 1B and the focus for the tier 1B is in the village center. The one area that would even be remotely able to meet these would be the Jolena Court District at this point. With Jolena Court already having their environmental review accomplished with building 1, the issues are known in that regard. So there really would not be a heck of a lot that would have to come out of our office if they were to build building 2. So that's just a little bit of context. The only other way I could see the 50 units or less and 10 acres or less is if lots get consolidated within the village growth area, and those buildings, part of those lots are demoed, and then that lot is then developed to a 50 unit, 10 unit, 5 unit, above 10 unit or above project. So that's really the context of what you're dealing with. It's a very small area in the town. I'm not 100% convinced that we can't ask for T1B opt-in in a year. I'm sure Charlie will speak to that. And that is actually a direct reference to Virginia's email also. But I mean, I have to be, straight down the middle with this. I just want to present the facts. And I think that both the Planning Commission and the Richmond Housing Committee have done so in a pretty good way. And obviously, CCRCP has provided their comments also. So that's the setup right now.
Okay. Charlie, would you like to come up and share CCRPC's input on this?
No, I really have no further input, really just
Okay.
if you have any questions.
Okay, and I do see that we have Connie Van Egan. Oh, Aaron from MSC TV, go ahead.
Just a quick clarification. Is this supposed to read after 2027 or until 2027? I thought in the beginning you said to change it to after 2027,
Correct, did I misread that?
but
Yeah, I
then
must have
you,
misread it. It is after.
it's after. Thank you.
Thank you. I corrected the beginning and then I reversed it here when we got to it. Okay, so Charlie's here if we have questions. We also have Connie Van Egan here from the Housing Committee. Connie, would you like to speak to this?
My name's Connie Van Egan from Richmond. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I'm one of the Housing Committee members. We had a chance to talk about this, including with guidance from Virginia Clark. And the Housing Committee's mission is to help support housing projects in Richmond, all kinds of housing projects, but also including housing projects that are more affordable than perhaps the current median rate. And what we want to ask the select board to do is send a message that we know the town is not a developer, a housing developer, but the town is responsible for policies which are watched closely by the community and are messages about whether or not there's a growth opportunity. We understand that Jelena Court is the only viable property and that there aren't other properties that are about to be reviewed, but we do know that developers pay attention and over the long term plan for property development by the acquisition of properties as they become available. So we don't think that there is an imminent risk of being asked to do work that the Planning Commission is not able to do at this time. We recognize that. But we also know that the message, in other words, postponing this until we're all ready, is such a common thing for people who have the privilege of not having to worry about where they're going to live have. And we want to express the urgency and need for those people who don't live in Richmond yet, but would very much like to, that there is a message of, we understand that there's a need for change and we'd like to start expressing support for that change. In addition to which, as I understood from the CCRPC response to Virginia Clark's email, the next opportunity is based on the CCRP's next plan, which was stated, I think I have this correctly, perhaps in 2028. So we can keep waiting until the time is right, or we can take an action now simply to send that message and help the town of Richmond get ready to do more to provide needed housing in its community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Connie, for contributing. Okay, discussion, members of the board, questions, comments, thoughts?
I've been thinking about this since last time that we spoke about this, and I know that we don't have an urgency because of the projects at hand, but the discussions we've had over time and what Connie is saying is it sends a message. And so I feel if we don't opt in, that we're essentially not marketing ourselves as open to housing, which is against what we're trying to go towards. And maybe it doesn't apply to anything in the works or anything soon. But my opinion is really leaning towards the what we put out there is a message. And I don't see the downside if it's not going to be additional work immediately and something that we can work towards. So I'm leaning towards supporting.
Okay, Bart?
Yeah, I've thought about this a little bit, and I've come back to thinking it seems, what are the risks? And unfortunately, people have not been very articulate about either the risks or the opportunities. And I think it's partly because there aren't many of either. I don't see any near-term opportunities, and associated with that, I frankly don't see near-term risks. So people are articulate about a message, but the message is doesn't appear to be directly founded on near-term or even medium-term opportunities for the housing developments that fit this profile in the area of 10 to 50 units. I think we're different than the other towns. This is an easy decision, I think, for the large towns and even medium towns. I think it's a more difficult decision for small towns where there's less staff bandwidth. But we're also not a Hinesburg that's surrounded by farm fields that are arguably, available in various ways for development. Flat fields that are not flooded and are either from below or above and don't have steep slopes. So if there is perhaps a persuasive argument, it's the message, even though it's not clear to me that the message actually is based on any near to medium opportunity for a housing developer. But putting that aside, I can appreciate that maybe the message is the massage.
Okay. In the chat, we have a couple comments from Chelsea Brooks. Chelsea, if you'd like to voice these yourself, you're welcome to, or I can read them.
I guess you're reading them.
I guess I'm reading them. Okay, Chelsea says, I would love CCRPC to clarify for the select board the subject of funding. It has been implied that the town must opt into Tier 1B for funding opportunities for developers. I don't believe that's accurate. Chelsea continues, also, can CCRPC please clarify that this is not only applicable to parcels served by municipal water and sewer, it would also apply to parcels within the planned growth mapping that can be served by shared septic systems.
Sure.
So Charlie's going to come up and address that. I'll leave the questions up if you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, Charlie Baker from CCRPC. And I think to answer these questions, I want to also put on the table the fact that you already have been for a year in an interim exemption area, which is a quarter mile from your village center boundaries. So if you don't opt in, the interim exemption stays for the next year or two. So, to these points, it does not have an impact on your funding, number one. And number two, and the reason I brought up the interim exemption is because right now it's that just generic quarter mile from your village center is what will be in for the next 2 years anyway, or 2.5. I can't remember. I think maybe the end of 27 or so that the interim goes on. And so opting in just gives you the opportunity to define your own geography as opposed to what the legislature defined. So I don't know if that helps, but she's correct. It's not necessarily tied to your water and sewer boundaries. It's the geography that you choose about.
And Chelsea, does that answer your questions?
Right. Yes, that does answer and clarify, because like I said, at the last meeting, our developers in town, Buttermilk, were pretty adamant that we needed to opt into this Tier 1B so that they could receive funding from like Vermont Housing Finance Authority and things like that. And I didn't believe that to be accurate. And I certainly want to ensure that decisions are being made based on the facts. And if you don't mind, I'll expand just while I have the floor. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So another point that I just wanted to make is Bard was talking about, like, what are the risks here? What are the benefits, right? And currently, I don't see, aside from this message that is implied, it would send to developers, I don't see any imminent benefits. I don't believe Buttermilk is going to develop inside of the exemption window, which I think is why they're pushing for us to opt into Tier 1B, because if they're not going to develop inside of that exemption window, then they want us to opt in so they can avoid Act 250 fees going forward. And I think that if the town decides to do so, my only thought and I guess recommendation would be that we're very mindful of where we choose that geographical overlay to be, because we do have control over that. It does not have to extend to all of the planned growth mapping areas. We can have it be its own little amoeba inside of that. And the reason I say this is because it removes the Act 250 oversight that we are so used to here in Vermont. And in Richmond, we have a lot of areas that I believe very particularly benefit from Act 250 oversight. There's a lot of areas in Richmond that are wetlands that are not mapped on the wetland inventories. Matter of fact, like 40% of wetlands in Vermont aren't mapped if you actually look at the Department of Environmental Conservation's website. And I just know, like personally here behind me, just a mile up from the village center on Jericho Road, there's wetlands abound in the forest behind me. There's forested wetlands. And so things like that are very concerning to me because we would lose that protection from Act 250. And if we wanted the same type of sort of control and oversight, we'd have to be hiring consultants and paying higher fees at the town level. So just something to think about, that we do have that power to make it a very concise location for our overlay. And I think that would be how I would do it if we were to ever opt in.
Adam, you're looking thoughtful. Any thoughts?
None coherent. Yeah, I guess I'm kind of broadly, I think it's a great idea to opt in because of the message it sends and then future opportunities. I think it's important that we can define our own boundary. Richmond's got some kind of intricacies with geography and all that stuff that would be important for us to include in that process. I guess I don't envision a situation where we would make, I don't think the select board ultimately be doing that mapping, but I think we would have to approve it in some capacity. I don't envision a situation where that opt-in area was so large that it would encompass a majority or even a large part of town. In my mind, I think we're really talking about a portion of the town that is on water and sewer at this point. So I think that's an important detail that really I had to wrap my head around. We're not opting in as a town, we're opting in as a town for a very specific to be defined area that we can hash out through a committee and a process. And then I guess my other concerns I did have were kind of really more the mechanics of administering all this, like Chelsea pointed out. And so it's my understanding from talking to Keith that we can, and it's common to, so the process all exists, that we can contract out any of this review process to various different experts or companies or contractors. One, and two, that we can then pass some or all of those costs on. So the town wouldn't really bear a ton of cost besides the added amount of time for Keith or the zoning administrator, however that shakes out, to actually administer the contracting process, but they wouldn't be doing the actual review work in most instances. So it seems like the real drawbacks that I was kind of wanted to make sure we could deal with have been kind of addressed in my mind. I don't see any real drawbacks left here, assuming we can, as a town, define this area.
Is I have two questions. First of all, is the area something that we can set, and then if we needed to be able to provide more flexibility to more space in the future, we can adjust with whatever time we need to?
Yeah, if that was a question for me, yeah, I think two things. And a lot of this is about timing, right? So we've been certainly pushing all the towns in Chittenden County to kind of make a decision this summer. So I appreciate you considering that. And my staff has been kind of protective of trying to make that as consistent as possible. However, I will note that we won't be putting our draft plan out for public review until probably the end of the calendar year. So it's probably another 6 months that you could look at the map and refine that and still get it into our plan for the land use review board to consider probably this time next year. So we're still like in a year-long process to get it approved by the state. And then having said that, I'll also say, the more I think about this, the more I think that towns are going to have, things that they work on, add a parcel, adopt new regulations. So I'm imagining we may be doing an annual update or something. the legislation isn't very friendly for that because it takes almost 8 months for the review and approval process. So I think in the spring, when the legislature gets back, we'll ask for a simplified process for these amendments, if you will. But so I do think there's going to be opportunity to adjust as we go forward and as we learn things. I mean, you know, that's what I just kind of hope that about everything. Like, okay, let's try it, learn something, adjust, and move forward.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that information. I think to me, like what that says in my mind is we have such a restricted, I wouldn't say restricted. We don't have a lot of opportunity to build in Richmond. There's not a lot of area that we can expand, and we know this, and we have goals to be able to expand housing in Richmond. And so to me, this is a lever to pull and like an ability to be able to say, okay, we've run out of space for developers to come in. We're not getting any bites, and we have goals. Maybe we take a look at expanding our map over here because we feel like we can support that as a town, and we want to make that property inclusive in this this exemption, and then it gives us something to be able to work with over time. The other thing I had a question about is, I might be remembering this wrong, so please tell me if I'm remembering this wrong, but I thought that in the last meeting that when Buttermilk was speaking up about the Juliana Court property, that they had already gotten their Act 1 or Act 250 approvals set, and that they were supportive of this, but that they wouldn't be using it. Am I remembering that incorrectly? I didn't think they were pushing us forward at all.
Understanding of it too. I mean, they've been through Act 250, so any environmental reviews, anything, even if they were exempt, anything we would want to know has been brought up and studied already.
Yeah, and so thank you. And tell me if anyone else thinks otherwise, but I had thought that because of what they'd already done, that it was inclusive of, would probably include the broader area. And then with that, I remember them explaining what the process was that they had gone through and what that looked like and some of the payments and so forth that they had to go through in that process and the timelines that it affected and why that affected them. But I think that was explaining what had already happened versus them pushing on us to change it so that they could utilize this. But I just want to make sure that I'm not remembering that incorrectly.
Keith seems to be nodding. Keith, you did have your hand up, you took it down. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would say that anything they do on building one, because you've allowed them to expand, you know, the residential in the commercial first floor, they're going to need to get a JO or jurisdictional opinion from the board in order to move forward on that. And you're correct. They're not going to be moving forward on building 2 until way after July 1 of 2027. So, and obviously they're not going to be within that periphery or that shadow zone, as I like to call it, that's outside of the village center. So you're spot on.
Thank you, Heath.
Okay, momentarily there's no hands up and no one seems poised to speak, so I'm going to share. You'll notice, those of you on the select board, that there's no motion in the packet. However, there is a draft resolution in the packet that CCRPC was kind enough to send us, and I'm going to attempt to share that. Can we hide the chat for a second? Okay, so this is a resolution on Tier 1B status for the municipality of Richmond. It includes a whole series of whereases. Under the law, we can request this status. The Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission may seek approval on our behalf from the Vermont Land Use Review Board. We have a duly adopted and approved plan and planning process that is confirmed in accordance with 24 VSA Section 4350. The town does have permanent zoning and subdivision bylaws in accordance with applicable state laws. The proposed Tier 1B area excludes identified flood hazard and fluvial erosion areas, except those areas containing pre-existing development in areas suitable for infill development. We have a wastewater infrastructure, water supply, etc. in the area. We have staff, municipal officials, and contracted capacity to support all of our Tier 1B responsibilities. And then it concludes with a now therefore be it resolved. So if we wanted to, if we don't want tier 1B status, we can simply say, let's move on. If we do want tier 1B status, we could move this resolution or amend it.
I mean, I was prepared to use the motion from last week that was just, I moved to opt in.
Yeah, we don't have to necessarily use
This
this.
resolution seems more comprehensive.
Yeah, we don't have to use this. This is just supplied by our friends at CCRPC should we want to use it.
I mean, I like the idea of using this, but I also don't want to read it all, to be completely honest. After my typing experience of it with that last week, you know.
Well, you could just move the bit
I've
there at
pointed
the
to the
end.
screen
just
before
point it,
that I
it's a
moved
move.
that.
Yeah.
Well, you can literally just move the resolution, the thing at the very end, which I'll put back up.
Right, and because as presented, and then there's the resolution for you all to sign. So if you agree with what's in the resolution and you sign it, then you have it on record of exactly what the board voted on in more detail. But up to
Here you go, Adam. I move to approve the resolution that the town of Richmond hereby requests that the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission seek the Land Use Review Board's approval to have the town's mapped future land use village center and planned growth area be mapped for Act 250 Tier 1B area status.
This is David, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Caitlin Filkins, seconded by David Sander, that the town request that the CCRPC seek the Land Use Review Board's approval to have the town's mapped future land use map village center and planned growth area to be mapped for Act 250 Tier 1B status. Any closing discussion from anybody? Okay, seeing none, please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Bard, aye.
And J.I. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Keith.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Connie.
More to come.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, moving on in our agenda. The next item on our agenda is all Josh. It is an announcement of having hired a police officer, which will bring our Richmond specific force to 2 officers.
Yay.
I've hired Armin Nuchik to serve as a Richmond police officer. Nuchik began his law enforcement career with the Vermont State Police and is currently employed by the Bristol Police Department. I do want to address an issue that occurred while he was employed with the Vermont State Police. During his time with the Vermont State Police, Nuchik used a department-issued car wash account for his personal car. The state police opened an investigation and Nuchik resigned from his position. He has explained that he was under the impression that the department paid a monthly fee for the account and he was allowed to use it for his personal car. When he learned this was not allowed, he paid back the approximately $160 to the state police. Addison County State's Attorney Eva Vikos issued a Brady/Giglio letter on August 22nd, 2023, which disclosed the incident, but also went on to state, at this time, there is no evidence to suggest that his report filed in your client's case is not accurate and truthful, nor that his testimony is not credible. Vikos issued a follow-up letter on March 31st, 2025, stating in part, Nuchik was never charged with any offense related to the Brady-Giglio letter that was issued by my office in August 2023. It has been confirmed that the matter is now closed and Mr. Nuchik is no longer under investigation. The August 2023 letter was issued by my office in an abundance of caution and according to VRCRP 16A2, G, and B2 for purposes of discovery. In the end, it is my opinion that Armin Nuchik is a person with great integrity and strong moral character who is deeply dedicated to his career in public safety. We consider him to be a great asset to our law enforcement community here in Addison County. That's the end of the paraphrased portion of the letter. We followed up with the Chittenden County State's Attorney, Sarah George. George stated that she would prosecute Nuchik's cases. Nuchik was very transparent about this issue. He included it in his application and discussed it in the interview process. I trust that Nuchik has learned his lesson and expect him to not to make similar mistakes in the future. I look forward to welcoming Nuchik to the Richmond Police Department.
Thank you, Josh. There's no motion on this because the town manager makes the hiring decisions, but there's certainly opportunity for questions or comment.
I was impressed with him and I support this hire. Good work, Josh.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, I guess I would just say, I mean, it's obviously he made a mistake and he handled it very well. He's come back from it. And I guess honestly, I'd rather work with and hire and work for, you know, all the above of people that have made mistakes and resolve them in a ethical manner than someone who's never made a mistake. Because when someone does it and makes a mistake and fixes it, you know how they'll act in that situation versus it being an unknown. So proud to say you're hiring him.
I've managed a few people and I've had people make mistakes, fireable mistakes, and they've come to me and said, I made a mistake. I'm not excusing it. This is what I did. And I've, they learned from it and they went on to be great employees. So
Good.
I support this.
Bard,
No concerns. I support it. It's a mechanical question. Maybe I missed it. Josh, what his start date is?
Oh, sorry, I didn't say. It is gonna be next Monday, June 23rd.
Can he fit in a Tesla?
That Tesla is currently up for sale, David.
There's no stuff in it, police stuff.
unfortunately, to the best of my knowledge, he does not come with a dog.
No.
Oh,
I was gonna say my only point is that Duke has to like him,
oh yeah.
and then I'm good.
If Duke doesn't like him.
That's
The
good.
fact that both the Addison County State's Attorney and the Chittenden County State's Attorney both support him. In fact, the Addison County State's Attorney was pretty enthusiastic about it. And Sarah George says essentially she sees no reason not to prosecute these cases. And the fact that he was very transparent and not evasive about this to come out and just, as you've all said, I think he will have learned from this. And so I'm happy to welcome him into the department. And now we have two.
Now we have two,
It's great.
Well, plus two.
plus Duke, so 2 humans and a canine, who everybody loves.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is an update on amending and extending the agreement with Hinesburg for police services and the search for an interim shared chief. There is the option for an executive session should any member of the select board want to go into executive session to ask confidential questions, but you will have to let me know if you want to do that. This pretty much falls to Josh, Bard, and David, who are on the shared committee. Who would like to tell us about this?
Sure.
It's the last meeting.
Well, so in the last meeting that we had, which I think was about 3 weeks ago now, we discussed making the current agreement that we have for police and or patrol and general services reciprocal. Right now, it's basically just Hinesburg is able to cover Richmond, but Richmond's not able to cover Hinesburg. The Hinesburg officers and their interim chief have expressed that scheduling wise, it would make a lot more sense and be a lot more helpful if Richmond officers could also cover Hinesburg. So that way you can kind of interchange officers to cover shifts in both towns, which is, I think, sort of one of the goals we're working towards. I brought that up with Sergeant Cohen. He talked with his union representative. He expressed, the union representative expressed I think he's the vice president of the union, expressed a desire to, well, we might have to bargain with that. We'll see. So that came up in the meeting that we talked about 3 weeks ago. I've since discussed it with our attorney and he recommended we don't need to bargain. So I sent a letter to Chris Hoare, who's the union vice president, stating that we feel we can move forward this. It's a management's right. We don't need to bargain. I've yet to hear back from Mr. Hoare. I have spoken with Sergeant Cohen to let him know that this is the path we're going to be moving down. So I think that what we'll have is a draft agreement for the next committee meeting next Monday. We'll talk about that in some detail to see if that's what the committee would like to move forward with. And if so, we'd like to be back to the select board, hopefully by the July 7th meeting with an agreement to look at, so we can take the next step in our cooperation with Hinesburg.
And then the other part of your update.
Well, maybe we stop and see if there's any questions or comments on that,
Questions
and then the
from-
next part. Or if David Bard, if I didn't clarify anything that you'd like to jump in on.
Bard's happy.
All right.
David missed the meeting.
I missed the meeting.
Okay. So the next part is that the committee's been working on what are our actual next steps for hiring a chief or for an interim chief. We spoke with law enforcement professional Jim Baker, who's been like 30 plus years in law enforcement, and he suggests, and he does a lot of recruitment for towns, for police chiefs and for other high-ranking police officials. He suggested that what he thought that both towns really could use was one person to come in as an interim chief for a period of maybe 2 years to work on the administrative sides of both departments, see what can operate more efficiently and effectively, as well as kind of run the day-to-day, but also provide some research and feedback to both select boards on what are the true next steps that you want to be taking here. We've talked about a number of things, from a contractual agreement to a full union municipal district. How would those work? There's a lot of intricacies there with the policing side of it, as well as outreach to the voters and approval from the voters. the committee felt it was good to move forward with that agreement. We also talked about this in the last select board meeting. So we now have an agreement in place. We signed it this morning with Jim Baker. It's for $4,000. The cost will be split between Hinesburg and Richmond. Barb, I did modify that agreement this morning to make sure that Richmond was also a client. So it's well, initially it was drafted as just Hinesburg as the client, but we modified it to make sure that both Richmond and Hinesburg are the clients of Jim Baker and his team. And he said he'll start immediately. He's got a few candidates in mind already.
Wow.
He did say that, we might be in a situation where we hire someone who's not currently a certified law enforcement officer, similar to when we had Paco Almond here in 2018. They'll have a lot of law enforcement background and experience, but maybe their certifications have lapsed. But in that case, if we move forward with somebody like that, they just wouldn't be able to go out on patrols and do law enforcement activity. They could still direct the officers, set the schedule, and provide a lot of feedback to the boards.
Questions? I see a few. Bart?
I'll only add one thing in our conversations, and, to be fair, these are kind of free-flowing conversations between the two towns. At one point, I think it was sort of a ruminant kind of question. Well, why doesn't Richmond just dissolve its police department and contract with Hinesburg for everything? And at least my personal opinion has been twofold. Number one, we not very long ago voted at town meeting to have a police department with funded positions. And it's at least my ethical, if not legal view, that we ought to, if we're going to eliminate a department and contract with a neighboring town, to engage the voters in some fashion regarding that question. And then the other thing I'll say is, if we were to pursue a municipal district, a joint police department that's not managed separately by two different towns or by one town under contract, that's a longer pathway. And it's been instructive to think about what happened with the emergency dispatch regional plan, which has sort of foundered a bit. And then the last thing I'll say about sole source contracts or a single contract, I'm personally sort of cautious about contracting, eliminating our own infrastructure and contracting with a single organization, given that the goals and perspectives of two different organizations do not always align. And from my view and experience, there is sometimes some element of risk of eliminating your own infrastructure and then being reliant on a separate entity as kind of a sole source or monopoly. I don't know if members of the select board or others have any comments on what I just said.
I mean, I guess just fundamentally, it seems like the more formalized and more collaborative this end agreement is, the harder it's going to be to achieve, but also the more sustainable and permanent it'll be.
Mhm.
So I guess it's really just a question of how much work we want to put into this now versus how much we want to just get it done. I mean, the more work we put in now, the more it's going to benefit us in the future and the more stability it's going to provide. So I guess I don't have a clear understanding of where our threshold is and where the two towns are aligned on that, but that seems to be the real crux of the problem, is how much time we're willing to put into this and truly formalize it.
I'll just note that, we've had a contractual relationship with Hinesburg of one degree or another for the last 2 years. So we've sort of dipped our toe in the water. We've gotten to know them. We have, I think, a pretty good working relationship with them. But I would agree with you that, if it's going to take another 2 years, well, that's what it's going to take to get to a really good solution. And I think that hopefully Jim Baker will be able to find somebody that can really help us on that path and help us kind of consider the pros and cons of different options and where we want to get to in the end.
That sounds great.
And the other, sorry, one other thing, I foresee that we would likely be in a contractual situation, at least on a temporary basis, which could be another year or two until we get to a true desired state.
Whatever that state is.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds reasonable. I mean, the situation right now, I mean, obviously, it's not ideal with just staffing and all that, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a bad, all things considered, it's not a bad situation to be in, and it provides us some stability and police coverage until we
Yeah.
can get to an end state, whatever that may look like.
Yeah, and I think if we're able to hire a strong interim leader, that will also help with some stability for the officers' peace of mind as well, as they select where they're gonna be police officers, which they have a lot of options.
Okay,
Um,
anything else?
no, yeah. Do you guys need us to do anything besides just kind of,
Nope, this is really just an update to you guys, to let you know where we're at and
Sounds
see if there's any questions.
and I'm sure this is like a really hard problem to tackle, as you are aware, because you didn't tackle it.
Yeah, and I keep coming back to what Jim Baker said in our meeting a few weeks ago, is that, you know, you need somebody who's up for a pretty good challenge, that really wants to do something that's different and meaningful in Vermont law enforcement, because there's really been nothing like this in Vermont law enforcement, where two towns that have not really been together are trying to come together for a police district of some sort. So I think while it's challenging and a lot of work, it's actually pretty exciting.
You know, I mean, also there's not really a precedent to look at, right? So you're
Yeah.
kind of hashing it out from the ground up.
Yep, and there's been a lot of talk about it. I know when we first talked to Trevor Whipple about this 2 years ago, he was the law enforcement professional from VLCT. He was very excited to hear that we were even thinking about doing something, because he feels that, you know, small towns like this, the future is sort of collaboration,
Mhm.
you know, and working together for police, and we'll talk about fire more as well, but that's another department that maybe there's some good collaboration. So
Yep.
sort of at the beginning of perhaps a great experiment.
Sounds great.
Love it. Thank you for doing that.
So a little bit of administrivia. The members of the fire department notified me that they would be arriving about 8 to
Mhm.
speak to the next item on the agenda. They are not here yet. I don't have any reason to suspect that they're not coming. So I'm asking the board's consent to jump over the fire truck item and go on to the next item on the agenda, which is of expenses from the July 4th fund. Does anybody object to doing that swap?
No. Sounds good.
Okay, so a little bit of background about the July 4th fund. I'm a member of that committee. The town pays for the fireworks, and the parade and fireworks committee otherwise is kind of on the hook to get its own donations from things like coin drops and the GoFundMe. However, we called off our coin drop for this year because it was raining cats and dogs that day, and it's not actually legal to stand in the middle of the road in the rain stopping cars. Who knew? But nonetheless, we still are in a pretty good financial situation because we have a recent $1,000 donation, and we have $66,251 from sale of the fry wagon. We also have $368 in the GoFundMe account that has not yet been transferred. So we've got $10,616, which, if we did no more fundraising, would probably cover us for a couple of years. The packet includes a request by the July 4th Parade and Fireworks Committee to use $1,700 from that fund for expenses so far incurred for this year's July 4th events. Does anybody have any questions?
Actually, I have an addition. So in the packet.
Oh, you're right.
In the packet, there's a list of items that they gave to me last week. And just to clarify the process, so this is a reserve fund, so I can't just spend out of it as a town manager. We need select board approval. So I talked with Sue Glennon from the committee this morning about a few additional expenses that she's like, oh yeah, we are gonna spend some money on these other things. And my advice was, you know, it's one thing was like, she's like, we might spend $750 on a bouncy house, but we don't know yet. I said, well, get approval to spend the money tonight, and then if you come to me next week and you need to buy a bouncy house, you have the approval to do that. So the original $1,700 plus $150 for a chair rental and tables, $30 for some coin wrappers that she bought for the coin drop, $300 for a face painter if one is available, $100 for trash bags, $100 for some day of items if they need to get extra ice or something from the market, $32.50 for the DJ fees that weren't included in the initial proposal, and $750 for a bouncy house if one's available. So that brings us to a total request of $3,162.50.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Any additional questions? Does anybody happen to have a bouncy? Caitlin, do you have a bouncy
I
house?
don't have a bouncy house. I appreciate that you asked me though, because I think I would be the one that has a bouncy house. You?
Unfortunately, I have a bouncy
Yeah.
house. Also, unfortunately, you don't want it. It's held together with tape.
Okay, are there any other questions or are we ready for a motion?
I move to approve the use of $1,700 from,
$3,162.
I move to approve the use of $3,162
And 50 cents.
and 50 cents from the July 4th Celebration Reserve Fund for the expenses related to the July 4th events as presented.
This is David, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Caitlin Filkins, seconded by David Sander to approve the use of
I say, yeah, that's
and
right on time.
right, $3,162.50 from the July 4th Celebration Reserve Fund for expenses related to the July 4th events as presented. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Hard I.
J.I. Thank you, everybody. Okay, now jumping back, we skipped over the fire department item because you guys weren't here yet. You're here now.
Sure.
Okay, so, Josh, if I could, I'd like to have you, I'll read the agenda item and then I'm going to pass it to Josh. So this next agenda item is an update on the property and casualty intermunicipal funds determination that fire department engine 1 is a total loss due to damage from an accident earlier this spring when it slid off the road and into the roadside ditch. Consideration of accepting the insurance payment with or without the salvage value, and a discussion of whether we even want to replace the truck. Do we need to replace it?
So the accident occurred on March 20th, 2025. They were responding to I think it was a chimney fire at the top of Snipe Island Road, going around a curve. It was mud season, so the shoulders were pretty soft. The truck was pulled into the ditch, landed pretty hard in the ditch, also hit a telephone pole. A good amount of damage to the cab and to the side of the truck and to the ladder racks and other various portions of the truck. So it took a couple months to really determine what's the damage, what's the way to repair it. It sounds like the cab would need to be completely replaced. They don't have these cabs anymore. They're about 15 years old, so it's not like you just go buy one and drop it on. They took it to several different body shops, including Giroux, and even Giroux, who's one of the experts that we've talked about before, looked at that and said, yeah, we don't want to touch that. So the insurance company has deemed that it's a total loss. The cost to repair it would be far exceed the cost, the current value of it. So they've, let's see, they said it's been deemed a total loss with a modified cash value of $133,950 and a salvage value of $6,500. So option 1 is accept the 133 minus the deductible of $1,000. Less the salvage value and keep the truck, and then we would get $126,450, or accept the salvage value, so we would get $132,950, and then the truck would go to VLCT, and they would do whatever they would do with the fire truck. We would, of course, take all of the equipment that can be reused off of it, so hoses, generators, any sort of equipment that would be used by firemen, we take that off. But the truck and like the damaged ladder racks and things like that would go away. So obviously the fire department's here to discuss this with us, and we kind of have to make a decision on what we want to do.
Truck was purchased when?
2011.
2011. And is it paid off?
Yes.
And it's due to be replaced in the plan when?
2031.
But that's the next part of this discussion.
Right.
And just to note, so then in the conversation that we had around the budget, we actually took this out of the capital plan to save money on putting, raising taxpayer dollars to go towards a reserve fund to pay for that truck in the future. With the idea that the fire department would discuss options for the next truck purchase. What do we actually need? And maybe there'd be some recommendations to, reconsider.
So is there any way this truck could be fixed to be usable for the next 6 years?
Well, we think we don't have a cab and we
Well-
can't get a cab.
Yeah, I mean, we saw, that was my thought.
Could you state your name just for?
Oh, I'm sorry, Brian Wolfson. That was my thought too. Is, try and ascertain whether, may not be the best looking truck now, but whether it's usable.
Yeah, I mean, for 132,000 minus 6,500, can it be turned into a 6-year truck?
Yeah, that was my question.
I talked to Glenn out of Lake Regions who sold us a truck. Apparently, they do not have the schematics. When they built this truck, they don't build that type of cab anymore. So you probably have to go back to Michigan. I think that's where we bought it. And have them go through the truck and get it back into any type of state to be the road ready. So I have no clue on how much that. I mean, the sense I got from him, talking to him on the phone is, it's not worth your time and your money.
So it's not drivable, not usable
We
now?
can drive it, but we've got a broken windshield, we've got a hole in the cab,
Okay.
you know, there's no ladder on it.
I haven't seen the truck and I haven't seen any estimates. What's the damage to the cab? Why are we talking about replacing the cab?
Do we have any photos?
Vented off.
I don't have this with me.
That can't be that bad. It's all-
So it took the,
it's all-
Dave, it took the, passenger side windshield out, top of the cab out, sheared off the mirror, sheared off all the handles we have. And took the 35-foot ladder and destroyed the 2 electric ladder racks we have on there. The first compartment on the passenger side will probably have to be re-straightened and a new door put on. And the black quarter, one of the red light flows is totally gone.
So the big thing is the cab.
Probably.
We could pump the motor around.
But we don't know if the cab is sprung or not.
So I think if I see how
That's
much
hard.
I see that's barred.
Hi, Bart.
Let's see, if I speak, can I put this up and have it? I was hoping to get my, I could email, let me email these to myself and then just give me a
Oh,
second.
that's impressive.
Yeah, it's so,
Now, I know this truck was built to spec. I don't imagine there's any such thing as used parts available for the cab.
I can't honestly answer you that.
And I hate asking third person what other people said, but what can you summarize what Giroux said about fixing the cab?
They were happy when I went over there last week and told them that the insurance company pretty much said total it. They said, good, because we didn't want to work out in the first place.
Didn't want to, or it wouldn't be advantageous?
So. And they're still talking 4 to 6 months before you can get it.
Okay.
The shop.
Now, are you wanting, this is.
We already have a fire truck.
But that's a serious question. If we keep it, we've got an estimated salvage value of about
6,500.
Is there any loon like yourself around here who would want to buy it for any amount of money and just do their best at doing something with it?
No, fire trucks are ridiculously expensive to acquire when they're new, and then you can't give them away. I mean, they're basically worth scrap value once they're done. But we did really well with the last pumper truck. I don't know how.
I mean, one thought I had was, I don't know, but can you put a traditional cab onto that? Oh, Ben Owens, can you put a traditional cab onto that? I have no idea, but like just a
Unfortunately,
unspec'd cab.
unfortunately, no,
Okay.
because it was built for a custom cab,
Yeah.
so commercial cab is not fit.
And I haven't seen it. I imagine the ladder racks and the storage compartments are fixable. It sounds like the cab is the big issue.
yeah, I'm trying to get them to,
I'm wondering if a good old fashioned tin knocker thing.
Well, a metal fabricator, I mean, you know,
Usable.
yeah.
Maybe not, oh, this most beautiful thing I've ever seen, but. Yeah.
We want a 6-year truck. I mean,
My
for,
guess is from having seen equipment and stuff damaged before, that it all looks good and they can fix it all up. And they gotta put the glass in and the glass
Doesn't fit?
Yeah,
well,
seriously.
no, yeah,
If
you'd
it's all
have to,
broken, it doesn't line up. You can make it all look good and then you go put the glass in and everything's racked a half
Yeah.
inch. You can't see that.
you'd have to work around the
Go on like a
windshield.
common, like a pickup truck or whatever, it's a common body, they have jigs, they can measure that, and if they don't have that for a custom cab, they're not gonna know that till they,
Oh, it doesn't
there's
fit.
not a way to figure
Well, you
that
have
out.
to fit it to the windshield.
Yeah, which is slow and expensive.
So I don't know if I should jump in this now, but I'm gonna. So looking forward, with the new rescue truck we're getting next October, not this October, that will still give us around 4,300 gallons of water coming out the door. And the two pumpers we have now. So I don't know if the insurance company would ding us for being underneath that at this point for a year and a half. But just. And we do have a great mutual aid system with Dalton and Williston, Hinesburg. So it's not like if we have any type of fire, they're pretty much automatically coming in at us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sitting on this board, I feel my job is to give you the equipment that you need to do your job. So I'm really in an uncomfortable position telling you what you can or can't have. I think what I'm asking is for you to tell us what you need.
Well, my personal, not talking about what the other guys taught, is we do not fix this truck. We go with the new rescue truck and we run with 2 Class A pumpers in the rescue truck. Plus our utility truck. So we'll actually be dropping down a truck. And then in 2033, 34, we'll be looking at replacing engine 2. That would have to be a Class A pumper. If something happened to one of those trucks, God forbid, an accident, we can. They do make demo trucks. You probably have to spend a little extra to get it to a Class A pumper. Right now, you could probably pick up a demo truck between 400,000 and 500,000 to do what we do here in Richmond. But I said probably estimate another 30,000 to 40,000 on equipment upgrade, so it's a Class A pumper. But we wouldn't have to wait 4 or 5 years to get a spec truck in there.
Right.
Okay, are we gonna have the photo?
I think it's on its way. I got a few photos. My email was giving me troubles, but
I think I already know the answer to this question, but we're not gonna find a replacement for that truck for 100 and
Yeah, you'd have to buy somebody else's headache.
yeah,
How much is yours worth?
Oh, that's way to put it.
it's priceless.
Okay, so
sorry. It's
if
just
I
making-
can, while we're waiting for the photo,
Mine
There-
is 2.5 miles to the gallon.
there are a number of things built into this item on the agenda. First, do we take the money and say, keep the truck? Or do we take the money, but don't let them pay us for the salvage value and we keep the truck? Then we have other items like, do we want to give them guidance about replacing the truck? So I think I haven't heard anybody say that we should, oh, there it is. I'll shut up for a second.
So that's the pole sticking out of the cab?
Yep.
Okay,
And the door will open, but it's.
Sprung.
A major adjustment.
and those ripples are in the go back one.
Yep, I got you.
So those ripples, that's the aluminum buckling?
Yes.
Okay.
We don't have, do we have a picture of the front of the cab?
Yeah, I think it's, there you go.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That's the money shot right there.
And Graham, you were, I'm not landing.
I was driving.
You were driving it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Are you okay?
Oh, yeah.
So windshield's obviously broken, the roof is pushed in, the roof is ripped open. Now, what would be the A pillar or the back of the windshield, the vertical pillar there, was that bent or moved?
The door opens and closes.
The door is pushed back, so having worked on bodywork before, I would say the A pillar's back some.
Okay, So, I mean, aside from the roof being pushed in, simply fitting a new windshield outside of the roof, it probably wouldn't line up with that A-pillar.
We're not.
They'd have to be good at pushing it out.
Okay. So talking about a new cab, we're talking about the A-pillar and the roof damage.
Whatever else they find.
So Graham, no pointing fingers. How hard was that hit?
Not that hard.
Okay.
It was probably going 25 miles an hour when it went off and slowed down real quick.
And then just,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm just guessing 10, 12 miles an hour.
I'm glad you're okay.
Once it went off and was into the dirt, it just.
I'm glad you're okay. I mean, the pole coming into the cab probably wasn't the like,
That's on the passenger side. so.
still, no one wants a pole coming at them inside of the truck.
Having been inside a car when it was totaled by a telephone pole, I can,
yeah,
it's not
Yeah,
my idea of a good
That's
time.
scary.
One thing I have about that truck is it is really tricky to drive. I've driven it a few times and it's a very awkward truck to drive. And on a dirt road, that's like a really difficult truck to handle. So that might be a reason to not try to bring it back into service. It's a very tricky truck, I think.
Maybe the truck was trying to tell us something.
Knowing how this works, if we were to buy it and we could spend all of $100,000 fixing it. And then if something happens to it again, we won't have insurance on it, right? Once it's salvaged, we're not gonna be able to insure it. Does it work the same with fire trucks as it does?
I don't know, but that makes sense. It would work.
I would be surprised if that's not how it works.
Right.
it would either be insured like another vehicle, but replacement value would be 20% less because it would be a salvage vehicle. I don't know. That would be a
I
question for
I have
VLCT.
like a hard time even insuring salvage vehicles for anything beyond liability insurance.
Yeah. But again, we're looking at 6 years versus 20.
Okay. Setting aside what to do next, do we want to make the motion to say keep the truck? Or do we want to make the motion to say, does anybody want the truck?
I'm inclined to say not keep it.
Yeah, that would be my thought.
That's what I'm here trying to say, but
Sorry.
You guys got voice.
You guys want
I guess the one caveat I'm thinking about is the only times I've seen all the trucks out are for big fires and the flooding events. And it's really helpful to have more trucks on the road during the flooding events because of needing to close roads. So I don't think we need that truck to close roads, but I would be hesitant. I don't know. The one question I have would be like, would something else make sense just to get people out and about? Not that truck, but I would say personally, I would find it.
Get a really nice pickup for $133,000.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, is there like a truck, a smaller truck that?
Yeah.
So without this truck in the fleet, you can't what?
I can't. Send 2 trucks for mutual aid column. That was a mutual aid station standby truck. But we can still send the tanker. And still have adequate coverage here in town. So again, it's the manpower issue that we keep running into.
Yeah.
So the truck limitation hasn't really been, it wouldn't really be a limitation right now anyway, but it would always be manpower.
I just did an AI search with a really good, it's called Perplexity.
Oh, I've used that one. I like that.
That was a very good question. I didn't think about that, about the insurability of a salvage title vehicle. It's very iffy.
Yeah.
It's very iffy. So, I think that helps answer the question.
Did you go?
Wait. Okay, so what's our wish? We have 2 forms of the motion in here.
How many people have looked at the truck to fix it? Giroux, who else?
Glenn over in Lake Region doesn't want to. He's seen all the pictures. And he said it'd be a nightmare. And of course, the insurance adjuster from VLTC came down 3 times. And took a whole bunch of different pictures. When you're back. I don't know who we actually talked to.
Yeah, they said total loss, but did they give any figures on what fixing it would cost, or did they just say total loss?
They just said the truck value is not worth putting how much money it would be to fix it. I think they're under the assumption that right now is once they start digging into the cab, they're gonna find a lot more issues that we can't see.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a body person, but we fixes that. Just in conversations I've had.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Bart, go ahead.
No worries. You know, Bart, this is my inclination is to say, let's dispose of it, strip it, dispose of it. What I'm contemplating though, and I don't think we really have time or perhaps the information tonight, do we need an interim truck? While
Yeah.
we're sitting here, I'm looking up used fire trucks online and they're all over the map from old and cheap to newer and expensive. And that's just a question. If we needed a truck for an interim, what kind of truck at what price point would we pursue? That's sort of maybe an open question we want to defer to next meeting.
My personal is, you guys can chip in if you want, but if we lost this truck, we'd still be able to function as a full functional fire department. The only thing we'd have to be weary of is something happen to another truck, and then we'd have to physically go after something for the interim time to get into the station.
So the big crunch would be the next year and a half before we take delivery of our next truck.
And so a real risk is if something happens to another truck again, then we're in a scramble mode. We got to make something happen ASAP.
But like you said, there's potentially demos available that you can get within a month and a half. And at that point, we'd have the $133,000 in the reserve account if you guys motion to put it there. 132, if you motion to put it in there, then we likely would need some sort of a quick loan to get that truck, but it seems like it's something we could deal with if that eventuality occurred.
That's not a likely scenario, but it's possibilities.
Hope not.
Here's a
Not
few
sure, but
ago,
we're gonna
we
take
did
our bets.
buy a lease a truck from Wellington for almost like 2 years.
Hmm.
It was an open cab and it was not good for the winter time. So, I was back in the 70s and 80s.
They were all open cabs, yeah.
It's a possibility that we could lease a truck from one of these bigger towns for a short period of time. While we figure out what we're doing.
From my point, with our current manpower, it's really hard to roll more than 2, maybe 3 vehicles out of the station at a time. So while it's nice to have that extra truck, it's not a truck that's gotten a lot of use until we build the department back up. We need more people in the driver's seat.
So if we bump up into a situation where we need a truck because we have so many people, that'll be a really good problem to have.
Yeah, it's the phrase, guys.
So many parallels with the police department.
So also, when we get into the capital budget here in a month or two, we were talking about putting an addition on the station sometime, which we really don't need to happen. I mean, it all depends on the growth of Richmond in the next 15, 20 years or what. How they're gonna push us, which way they're gonna push us. I understand that we're gonna have a lot of units put in. That there are work arrangements for that. Which I'm sure you've all heard.
Josh, are you looking for yay or nay from the board, or would you be comfortable if the board all weighs in and then defers to you for the ultimate decisions?
I guess it'd be helpful to have a vote from the board as far as what you want to do, just so I know exactly.
Check the offer from Passive for $132,950 for the damaged fire truck and turn the title of the truck over to Passive.
And if you want to add one thing, if you'd like to deposit the money into the fire department reserve fund, I think that way it's saved for another truck.
And to deposit deposit the money into the fire department reserve fund.
Caitlin, I'll second.
So the question is that in that motion, are you giving the fire department authorization to pull equipment from the truck?
I don't think I need to give them that, but
I think you already pulled it, right?
No, we only pulled a couple of things.
Okay, but yeah, I think
I mean, there's.
This offer was not conditional on the equipment being present.
Yeah, I mean, I did ask that of VLCT to make sure like we can pull hoses and generators, and they thought so. They were gonna double check. They hadn't gotten back to me yet, but I don't think, if they won't let us pull that, I'll come back to the board and tell you guys, because I think we should be able to take anything you can reuse. If there's a ladder that's still good, the hoses, right?
Tool holders that we put in, radios.
it's a lot of that stuff you added after the purchase price too, so it was not factored in the cost of the car.
Yeah, we're not gonna pull the carburetor out or anything like that, like. we're just-
Rejected. I would be impressed.
Well, then, yeah. We're not gonna scavenge parts of the truck, just.
Tires will stay on.
No.
We're gonna leave one tire on each side of the rear.
There you go, cinder blocks. We'll throw in some cinder blocks, you can jack it up in your front yard. But no, I think anything that we could put on another truck that's not part of the truck, we would take off.
Break off a little small piece of that cab.
Just for.
Give it to Graham.
Sure, we could do that.
I want to amend the motion. I think Graham needs the gear shift.
The gear shift?
Gear shift knob.
We might be able to pull a couple things off for Graham.
We do have a motion for the minutes from Adam Wood, seconded by Caitlin Filkins, to move to accept the offer from Passive of $132,000, $130,950 for the damaged fire truck, and turn the title of the truck over to Passive and deposit the proceeds into the fire department reserve fund.
Does that work for? Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I gotta return a page.
Adam,
Clear
aye.
back.
Bard, aye.
And Jay, aye. Okay,
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Yeah.
so any further discussion about future direction or? we good?
Understand everything.
I mean, do we feel like the 500-gallon rescue truck would get us through when that comes in?
Yes. So
And
that
that's expected to be here.
October of next year.
Okay, so that's the intervals where
So
we're.
engine two has 1,800 gallons of water, engine three has 2,000, and that would put us up to 4,300 gallons of water going out the road,
And then we've got the brush truck or the utility truck that holds 300.
300.
Yeah, okay. So that's the plan is
Yes.
hope we don't need to buy another truck in a hurry, go with what we've got.
And that way we can hold on to doing any additions to the fire station.
Okay.
So I did the number now, compared to. Like, they gave us years ago. The roof is good for a few years, so. It just looks. But it's still good. And the only one reservation we'd like to do is get the new water line. Sometime.
So can you expand on that? The new water line from the
We're
town?
going from, right now, we only have a 3/4-inch water line in the station. So we have a 1,000-gallon tank sitting behind, Maxim.
Mhm.
And we fill the trucks up in the winter time from that tank. If we had a 4-inch line, which we put in the budget for. Into the station, we wouldn't have to have that tank.
So Josh, what's the,
Yeah, I think, and Adam called me about this earlier, my recollection was that Pete said he would do the excavation. And I forget what Steve's involvement was gonna be from water sewer, if they needed to be to do the connections, or if we would
We have to hire
someone to do that. But what about the water line itself? Would Steve and Pete be able to do that?
Yeah, from the hydrant into the.
So I think it's just a matter of reminding Pete and getting it on his schedule and buying the equipment.
As long as we have no more flying.
Well, yeah, I mean, best laid plans, but yeah, I think see when Pete can do it, he might be able to do that on a figure it out sometime, I'm sure. But yeah, I think you put it into the FY26 budget for the
Yeah, it's-
materials.
Save for a couple of years.
Okay, so, yeah, we can do that.
Then if we have a lot of space over the section of road, so.
Right. Good.
My other thing was that I could do that. We didn't know,
We can also make filling the trucks easier. Because engine 3 has 1,800 gallons. The tank we fill it on has 1,000.
Yeah, be a lot quicker.
Yeah,
Okie dokie. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
yeah,
it.
thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Need vice grips, Graham,
What's that?
and get vice grips, bend a piece of that off.
Yeah, you need a piece of that truck.
You should. That'd be a good story.
You know about the old tin knockers,
Okay, we have one agenda item left and then the usual purchase orders and minutes and warrants. So we might be able to get out of here by.
Night all. Thank you.
Good night, thank you. Glad you're okay.
Oh, well, thank you. That was nice of you.
Okay, so our last agenda item before we get to the financial stuff is consideration of closing Esplanade Street, Bridge Street, Thompson Road, Farr Road, and portions of East and West Main Street on the 4th of July. The road closures on Bridge Street, Jericho, and East and West Main Street are to accommodate the route for the 4th of July parade. And you may go, wait, the parade doesn't go up Jericho Road, but the fun run comes down it. And so we're gonna have Mike with one of the smaller trucks up there at the school. And when all the participants in the fun run are on the road, he'll just follow them down and use that truck to close off Jericho. The closure of Thompson Road and Farr Road is to allow the parade vehicles room to park after they're done and, wait for the parade to finish so they can drive back up Bridge Street. And then Esplanade is because the poor folks in Esplanade are kind of tired of people just jamming that street full of cars and preventing them from getting out of their driveways and stuff every 4th of July. So last time they borrowed one of the signs from the road closures and put it up at the entrance to Esplanade for the rest of the day to keep people from parking in there. And I think they've got some sort of solution that where they've got their own sign, right?
Or didn't we have a highway sign for them last year? I remember there was a confusion about
Maybe
where
we
the
did.
sign was, what time it got moved to certain places, but I'm sure we'll figure that detail out.
Okay. So the motor vehicle ordinance prevents parking within 250 feet of the entrance to the wastewater treatment facility, which is a location where people have parked illegally in the past for access to Volunteers Green. So in order to avoid confusion and illegally parked cars, we closed Esplanade Street the last 2 years. And from what we understand, the residents of Esplanade Street were generally in favor of the closure. I certainly didn't hear anybody complaining. So it's a lot of road closures when you total it up, but I mean, it's pragmatic. I don't really see how we have an option. We need a place for the parade to wrap up. We need a place for the parade, and we need people to not park by the water treatment plant, sewage treatment plant, and on Esplanade. Any thoughts or discussions? Okay, so it's kind of a open and shut. Would somebody like to make the motion? It's a long one.
I move to close the following roads for the following times on July 4th, 2025. Jericho Road from the traffic light to School Street from 10:15 a.m. to 10:45 p.m. East and West Main Street.
That should be AM.
Sorry,
That's my
10:15
typo,
a.m.
David.
to 10:45 a.m.
You didn't even flag me on my typo.
That's one.
You usually, there you go. Thank you. Feel
East
better.
and West Main Street in the immediate vicinity of the intersection with Bridge Street from 10:15 a.m. to noon. Bridge Street from the intersection with East and West Main Street to Volunteers Green from 10:15 to noon. Thompson Road and Farr Road from 10:15 to noon. Esplanade Street from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. with the exception of vehicles belonging to residents on the street, vehicles for the Classic Car Show, and water and wastewater staff.
I'll second.
Okay, there's one mistake here. I don't mean a typo. Closing Bridge Street only to Volunteers Green leaves out a big chunk of the parade. It needs to be to the round church.
Yep.
So would the maker of the motion entertain an amendment to make that to where the round church instead of to Volunteers Green?
Yeah, so do you need me to read it?
You have to
No,
reread the whole
yeah.
thing.
No, will you accept that
I accept
amendment?
the amendment.
And you'll accept.
I'll second the amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander to close the following roads on July 4th. Jericho Road from the traffic light to School Street from 10:15 a.m. to 10:45 a.m. East and West Main Street in the immediate vicinity of the intersection with Bridge Street from 10:15 a.m. to noon. Bridge Street from the intersection with East and West Main to the Round Church from 10:15 a.m. to noon. Thompson Road and Farr Road from 10:15 a.m. to noon. Esplanade Street from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. with the exception of vehicles belonging to residents in the street, vehicles for the Classic Car Show, and water and wastewater staff. If there's no further discussion, please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Bard, aye.
And Jay, aye. Okay. We have how many purchase orders now? 3?
4 now, I think.
Thing. Jay.
Yes, I can pull those up for you. Actually, the DJ, he wasn't purchase order, was he? No, it was the town auditors.
Town auditor.
So I can pull those up. Would you want to do minutes first, and then we'll
Yeah,
do the purchase orders?
If we want to approve the minutes of the June 2nd meeting.
This is David, so moved.
Adam, second.
Okay, we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to approve the minutes of the June 2nd meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, deletions? Okay, please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Bard, aye.
And Jay, aye. Now purchase orders, and Josh is bringing them up one by one.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay, so the first purchase order is VLCT Property and Casualty for property, casualty, and workers' comp insurance. This is the town's half of the overall, some of this is borne by the water and sewer department. So the total of 267.92 is just everything else's share. Does anybody have any questions about this? Okay, seeing none. Would somebody like to move that?
So moved.
Adam, second.
We have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to approve purchase order 5181 to VLCT Property and Casualty for property, casualty, and workers' comp insurance for an amount billed to the general fund of $62,267.92. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Bard, aye.
And Jay, aye. Next. Purchase order 5259 to various vendors for the highway gravel and all aggregates in the amount of $120,000. This is a not to exceed, right?
Yes.
Okay. Questions? Comments? Can somebody make the motion?
So moved.
This is David, I'll second.
There'll be a motion for Caitlin Filkins, seconded by Adam Wood, to approve purchase order 5259.
I'm David.
You can be David. Okay. Moved by Caitlin Filkins, seconded by David Sander, to approve purchase order 5259 to various vendors for the highway gravel plan and all aggregates in an amount not to exceed $120,000. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Bard, aye.
Jay, aye. Third, purchase order 5260 to Hinesburg Sand and Gravel for wash and sand for winter road maintenance in an amount not to exceed $35,000.
This is David. I move to approve purchase order number 5260 to Hinesburg Sand and Gravel for wash sand for winter road maintenance in the amount of $35,000.
Caitlin will second.
Okay, we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Caitlin Filkins, to approve purchase order 5260 to Hinesburg Sand and Gravel for wash sand for winter road maintenance in the amount of $35,000. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Bard, aye.
And Jay, aye. And then the fourth one, which was not in your motions, purchase order 5294 to RHR for that these are our auditors.
They're the auditors, so this will be the FY 25 audit. The base price is $22,800. We will need at least one single audit, and a single audit occurs when you reach a certain threshold of federal money. We're still clarifying the billing to see if they're going to charge us like per each individual project, like one for ARPA, one for FEMA, or if it's just $6,000 once. But for the purchase order purpose of the purchase order, we just doing $12,000 just to kind of give us a buffer. Obviously, we won't spend all that if we don't have to for the billing.
This is Adam. I move to approve purchase order 5294 to RHR for an amount not to exceed $34,800.
This is David. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander, to approve a purchase order to RHR for the town audit in an amount not to exceed $34,800. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Bard, aye.
And Jay, aye.
I guess I just want to make sure that as we get into the warrants, I sent later today a couple additional warrants. Everybody get a chance to review those. Just want to make sure.
There's two of them, right?
Yeah, there was
for
the
DJ and.
yeah, there was the DJ and the chair rental for the fire, sorry, for the 4th of July. And then there was the additional invoice for RHR for deposit. So, okay.
This is Adam. I move to approve the warrants as presented.
This is David, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander to approve the warrants as presented. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Bart, aye.
And J.I. Okay, now our last item on the agenda. Annually, we do a performance evaluation of our town.
What do you want to do next agenda?
Oh, next agenda. Okay. Item to our next agenda. Josh and I were thinking the other day that we haven't talked about the swale.
We should certainly talk about the soil.
Let's maybe not.
The swale was this swale over there that flooded and it's private property.
Mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Richmond's own swamp.
Ooh.
And it just kept coming up as something that the town, they were certain the town had to be involved in. And they finally went away.
So you're bringing it up again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we miss it. It was like an old friend and,
Consistent.
Okay.
okay. So I didn't hear a lot of things for the agenda, but tonight was a nice short meeting. I'm sure things will have piled up.
We have 3 weeks before the next meeting too. So I'm sure we'll find plenty of things to talk about.
Okay. So as I started to say, annually, we conduct a performance review of our town manager, which is provided in written form. I was about to schedule an executive session to draft that. And since we didn't communicate that in advance, I doubt that people have detailed thoughts about it, but we usually write up a draft and discuss it and then sit down with the town manager to go over it. But tonight, since we don't have that document pre-drafted, we can still chat about it, maybe make some thoughts about what should be in it. And then we would also reflect on moving Josh up one step on the pay grade if that's what we want to do. So we have two motions here.
And you can invite me in or not if you guys want to talk without me. That's fair too. Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
So I leave it to the discretion of whoever makes the motion.
My computer died, so.
Jay, this is David. I move to find that premature public knowledge about the evaluation of an employee would cause the town or person to suffer a substantial disadvantage.
Caitlin, one second.
Now we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Caitlin Filkins, to move to find that premature public knowledge about the evaluation of an employee would cause a town or person to suffer a substantial disadvantage. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Bart, aye.
J.I. Now, because Bart is remote, we do need to take a computer in there and you could make a breakout room and I could, if we don't invite you in, I can take my laptop in.
Sure.
So do we want to invite Josh in or not?
I think
Okay.
so.
Okay, well then go ahead and make that motion, then we don't have to take mine in.
Wait, are we just talking about Josh or are we talking about other people?
Just Josh.
Oh, okay.
Jay, this is David. I move that we enter into executive session to discuss the evaluation of an employee under the provisions of 1 VSA 313A3 of the Vermont state statutes and to invite town manager Josh Arneson into the executive session.
This is Adam, second.
Okay, we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood, to move into executive session to discuss the evaluation of an employee under the provisions of 1 VSA 313A3 of the Vermont statutes and to invite town manager Josh Arneson into the executive session. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, aye.
Bart, aye.
And J.I. Bard, we will see you in the breakout room. Okay, so David's taking a phone call and we do not know how long that will be, but we have a quorum nonetheless. Would somebody like to, for those of you watching on the recording or who may still be with us watching live, which I don't think we have Chelsea.
Chelsea's still here.
We have to make all decisions relating to wages and salary in the public eye. So we just met to talk about the town manager and executive session, but we cannot vote his annual increase in executive session. So there is a proposed increase in the packet. Would somebody like to make that motion?
Adam, I move to raise or bump town manager John Emerson's pay from grade 10 and step E at $97,701 annually to grade 10 step F at $102,896 annually. This pay increase will be effective July 1st, 2025.
Caitlin, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Adam Wood, seconded by Caitlin Filkins to move Josh from, sorry, what was the steps again?
Grade 10 step E at $97,701 annually to grade 10 step F at $102,896 annually.
Okay, and this would go into effect on July 1.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay, please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
Adam, I.
Bard, aye.
And Jay, aye. Okay, we've already discussed items for next week's agenda, so all that remains, unless you have anything you want to bring up, is to adjourn.
This is Adam. I make a motion to adjourn at 9:01 p.m.
Caitlin, I'll second.
Okay, you have heard the motion to adjourn at 9:01 p.m., seconded by Caitlin Filkins. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Bard, aye.
And Jay, aye. We are adjourned.